Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It is time to once again have a look at the Indonesian aviation subtree. This is something we've already covered, but we haven't had a look at the higher up stuff. So in this video, we're going to have a look at the rank 6, rank 7, and also rank 8, so a bunch of jets, which should be quite fun. As always, if you enjoy this content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. The first vehicle for rank 6 is the LIM-5, or the Type 56. This is a license-made MiG-17F, either of the Polish LIM-5 or 6 family, or the Chinese Type 56, or the J5 as they called it. The only noticeable difference is a slight antenna on the top of the middle fuselage. The Type 56 doesn't have the antenna, but the LIM-5 has. Basically, to generalize, Indonesia operated around 30 to 50 of these vehicles, and also the general look at it is about 30 Polish LIM-5s and about 12 Chinese Type 56s. These things had the Klimov VK-1F engine. They also had access to rockets, bombs, and of course the 37mm N37 and two 23mm NR23s. There's also the LIM-6, which is here. Most sources for Indonesia seem to mention LIM-5s and also LIM-5Ps, but there are some display aircraft around Indonesia which show some LIM-6 characteristics. The specific one is the distinct brake parachute, which you can find under the rudder. This is not on the other MiG-17s that are around, so that makes this the LIM-6. The other thing is it has a different engine. This one had the LIS-5 turbojet engine, so it gave it slightly different performance from its LIM-5 brothers. You have another LIM-5 too, specifically the LIM-5P. This was a Polish license-built variant of the MiG-17PF, which had access to the Izumrud 5 radar. There was 5 to 7 of them, which were obtained by Indonesia, and most of them were sent to the US afterwards, but most of the aircraft are now in museums or are gate guardians, which is quite fun. These ones do use the Klimov VK-1F and also have the 3 23mm, so they dropped the 37 to have the standard 23s. We continue with the MiGs, with the MiG-19S, which turned up for Indonesia. 35 of them were obtained in 1961 to be used during Operation Trikora. These aircraft didn't stop in Indonesia, though. What ended up happening to them is they were eventually sold off to Pakistan after the relations deteriorated with the Soviet Union. This is very similar, if not the same, as the MiG-19S that you have in the German tech tree. It has the two Tumansky RD-9B engines and also three 30mm NR30s, plus a bunch of rockets and some bombs too. The MiG-21 F-13 also turns up for Indonesia. 26 of them were obtained once again for Operation Trikora. A couple of them were the U variants, this is the trainer version, but most of them were the standard F-13s. Basically, these vehicles, once again, were used by Indonesia, and then around half of them were later sent to the US after relations soured once again between Indonesia and the USSR. This obviously has the 130mm NR30, it would have access to the R3S missile, the S5Ks, and the FABs, and of course the Tumansky engine. This vehicle is already in the Soviet tree, so it's worth having a look at. You also have a Sabre, the Avon Sabre Mk, or the Puslit Bang as it was called. 16 of these CAC Sabres were obtained in 1972, and the interesting thing about them is the guns, when arrived, were disabled. But then they were reactivated by the Ministry of Defense Puslit Bang, which is basically the Research and Development Center, which is where it gets its name. They also added some suspended armaments to it as well, and they were used for 7 years, but it was forbidden to actually act in any military operations by Australia. So basically, this came in and the Indonesians had them, but they weren't allowed to use them militarily. They had two 30mm Aden cannons, 16 80mm Orlikon Sura rockets, and maybe even some AIM-9 missiles that they could have brought along. You then also have the A4E for Indonesia. This one was nicknamed the Hunchback because of the hump on the fuselage. The standard version has the hump, but the trainer, which they also use, doesn't. Visually, they are the same as the Israeli ones, which you have in the game. 16 of these were obtained in 1980, 14 A4Es, and then 2 TA4Hs. There was also another 16 which were purchased in 1982, and once again has the same modifications as the Israeli one. But it did have a further modification for the Indonesians. Specifically, they added the Vicon 70 camera, and also changed the communication radio, and also the Doppler antenna was added to it, plus a few more internal systems. But they would basically be the same as the A4 ones, at least in the game. You also have the Hawk, specifically the Hawk 53. This was the export version of the Hawk 50, which was designed for Indonesia. This was built by BAC, or British Aerospace Company. It used the Rolls-Royce Turbo Mk Adore 851 turbofan engine, and I believe 5 of them were repurchased by BAE in 1999. So basically, Indonesia bought 20 of them, and then BAE bought back 5 of them later on. These versions didn't have a ton of armaments. They had one external 30mm Aden, and then also they could carry some bombs and rockets, but no missiles. So unfortunate for that vehicle. You also have the Tu-16, which turns up as well. 14 Tu-16s were obtained in 1961 to 62, although the purchasing plans were discussed as early as the late 50s. They were purchased to replace the B-25s that were lacking in spare parts, and the standard Tu-16s were operated by the 41st Squadron. We don't actually have Tu-16s in the game, maybe at some point we will, but this is a very big behemoth, and it's run by 2 Mikulin AM3 engines. It could go 945 kilometers an hour, but it had 7 AM23 cannons, 2 in the dorsal, ventrum, and tail, and then even 1 offensive one. And it didn't have any hard points, but it had a ton of inner bomb racks, which meant that it could carry up to 9 tons worth of bombs. Then you have another variant of the Tu-16, the Tu-16 KS-1. This one was designed with the addition of having hardpoints for the KS-1 anti-ship missiles. Other than that, it's exactly the same as the standard Tu-16. So therefore, it would just have access to a crazy anti-ship missile, which would be quite fun. It could only carry 2 though, but they are pretty big. For rank 7, we start off with the Hawk 109. This is the export version of the BAE Hawk 100, designed for Indonesia. 8 of them were obtained in the middle of the 90s, and unlike the Hawk 209, it has no radar. So there is an RWR facing forward. The type used is the Sky Guardian 200 by GEC Marconi from England, but the RWR was upgraded to the Selex ES SEER self-protection RWR in 2016. It also has a laser rangefinder in the nose, which is made by Ferranti, and also has an FLIR device, which is pretty cool. The vehicle is powered by the Turbo Mk Adore Mark 871, and it has access to a bunch of armaments. You have a 130mm Aden, you also have 5 hardpoints that can carry AIM-9s, Mavericks, Mark 12 bombs, 82s, 81s, even some drop tanks and Hydras too, just to complete the setup. The Indonesians also operate the F-5E, which is the MACAN. This first arrived in 1980 and then was upgraded in the 90s. It had a ton of different upgrades done by the Indonesians in specific companies. The upgrade name was MACAN, modernized of avionics capabilities for armament and also navigation. So the upgrades included a hoodwack, the LN93 INS, video systems ALR93 RWR, and also the AN/APQ-159 radar. The upgraded F5s are similar in technology to the F-16s and C and D, but obviously without the better engines or the armaments. So they still use the AIM-9 P2s. They do have the P100L, which is an Indonesian made bomb. They also could carry a bunch of other bombs and rockets too, which is quite fun with the 220mm M39s. So yeah, a lot of internal upgrades on those vehicles. They also use the Super Tucano, the EMB 314. These ones were originally ordered in 2010, and 16 of them were obtained from 2012 to 2016. They are there to replace the OV-10F Broncos in the casserole. These were focused on purely surface attacks. So basically it's very comparable to a lot of the other vehicles that they use, and it has a ton of internal systems which mean that it can work pretty well. It uses the Pratt & Whitney Canada PT6A engine. It has a maximum speed of around about 600 kilometers an hour, but the main thing is, of course, what it can carry. It has the two 12.7mm guns, but also 5 hardpoints designed to carry some ordnance, the Mark 81 and 82 bombs, some rockets, and also the Piranha missiles, which recently just got added into the game on the Brazilian-Italian Premium. You also have the T50I. This is the KAI T50 export version for Indonesia. There was about 16 of them, which were obtained in the mid-2000s, or 2013 I should say, and they were given a radar in 2018. It's a tandem seat with an FPW digital control and many other factors, which are pretty cool. The vehicle uses the General Electric F404 afterburning turbofan. Such a great engine, you see it all over the place. And this is a Mach-capable aircraft, so it can go Mach 1.4. It has the 20mm Vulcan in the nose. It also has 7 hardpoints where it can carry Sidewinders, Hydra rockets, Mark 82 bombs, Mark 12s, Mavericks even, and even drop tanks too. This is the first vehicle that we've seen for Indonesia that is supersonic capable. For rank 8, we start off with an Su-27, specifically the Su-27SK. This was purchased in 2003 by Indonesia. They purchased 2 of them. However, all the SK variants have been upgraded to the SKM version, which is slightly different, even though they only have 2 of them. Basically, they have an OEPS 27 electro-optical sensor, and also a radar is the Phasatron Zook 27, which obviously has all of the capabilities of a very modern radar, at least from the early 2000s. This vehicle is powered by the NPC Salyut AL31F turbofan engines with a lot of armaments in tow too. The only ones that it doesn't get access to from an Indonesian point of view is the KH-31P, the KH-29T, and also doesn't get some of its air-to-air ordnance, but does get the nice ones, the R-27R1s, the R-27T1s, and also the R-73E2. The Su-27 SKM is also here, which shouldn't really be a surprise. Basically, the original export variants for Indonesia was supposed to be the Su-27KI, but in 1997, Indonesia ended up not ordering that plane. They started operating the flankers, though, in 2003, and they had 5 units of the Su-27 of both the SK and SKM variants. Although now all SK variants have been upgraded to the SKM version, the SKM upgrade includes a new digital MFD with other electronics, also the ability to use guided AGMs, such as the KH-29 and 31, as well as the R-77A missile. So basically everything that you lose from the standard Su-27M that they have previously, they gained in this one, meaning that they could have access to the better weaponry kind of going forward. They also, in 2003, purchased 2 Su-30MKs. The 2 MKs have been upgraded to the Mark II standard in Belarus and has very similar capabilities and equipment to the Su-27, but doesn't have the Varesk active jammer pod. As on the Su-30, the active jammer is replaced with the Belarusian Talisman ADS, which is made by Defense Initiative. This one is powered by 2 NPC Salyut AL31F turbofans once again, and has pretty much all of the standard ordnance that you would find from these things, apart from the KH-59M. You then also have the Su-30 Mk2. Now, there was a total of 9 of these purchased since 2008. There is now 10 after the standard Su-30 Mks were upgraded. Basically, the K2 includes an improved fire control system, more advanced cockpits as well, better ECM suite, and also support for additional weaponry and better IRST capabilities. It has the same active jammer as well, but the basic thing that it would get, at least from a gameplay point of view, is access to the KH-59M and also the APK-9E alongside of it. You also have the F-16A Block 15 OCU. This is the original version that Indonesia purchased in the 80s and 90s, basically straight from the factory. So they didn't purchase it from somebody else, they just got them brand new. Originally, they were equipped with the AN/APG 66PD radar. The Block 15 upgrades include a new extension tailplane stabilizer with 30% more area to improve stability and a faster takeoff rotation. There was also a few other changes, such as increased underwing hardpoints and a modified cockpit instrument layout. The OCU upgrade includes an F100 PW220 turbofan with DEEC Group 3, bigger hood, built by Marconi. They added support for the NAL Q131 jammer pod and also a ring laser gyro INS, along with some structural reinforcement, wiring for future updates in avionics, and a few other things too. The ALR69RWR is on the machine as well. It's powered by, of course, the PW we talked about before, but in terms of armaments, it has the 20mm Vulcan, the 6 AIM-9P sidewinders, but also P2s and P4s, rockets, bombs, Mavericks, all the standard stuff. The only things it misses out on is no GBUs and also no JDAMs. You then also have the F-16C Block 52 ID. The F-16C Block 25 were upgraded to be equal to the Block 50 or 52. This was initially received around 2015. The upgrades included an MMC 7000A mission computer, the AN/APG 68V9 pulse Doppler radar, and also with modem data link 16. There also is the embedded GPS INS EGI, which is for the JDAMs, an ANAL Q213 EWMS, and also the ALR69 Class 4 RWR and ALE47 countermeasures. The PW220E engines were also upgraded with a Group 6 DEEC system and also Augmenta engine with an FBU control system too. So now the pilot can withstand up to 9 Gs, which is kind of fun. So this one would be incredibly similar to the previous F-16, apart from it would have access to AMRAAMs and also better missiles, so the AIM-9Xs specifically, and also access to GBUs too, which are the guided bombs. And hey, guess what? You got another F-16. This one specifically the AM Block 15 Falcon Star eMLU, which is a ridiculous name. This one was one which went under the Falcon Star midlife upgrades in 2018. The AM and BM should be similar to the Block 52 ID in performance, and basically the difference between the AM or the C variant, the AM version has the IFF bird slicer, while the C or the older A versions do not. So that's pretty much the difference between them. This variant could carry BVR missiles, JDAMs, and everything else like that. Then the last vehicle is the Hawk 209. This one was an export version of the Hawk 200 for Indonesia, initially obtained in 1997 alongside the Hawk 109s. It should be pretty similar to the Hawk 109s, except that it has an air refueling probe and is equipped with the AN/APG 66H radar, which is pretty fun. This vehicle had a 30mm Aiden external cannon under the fuselage. It was powered by the Turbo Mecha Adore Mark 871, but could also carry AMRAAMs, surprisingly. It could also carry Mavericks and the AIM-9 Sidewinder once again, but the P2 or the P4 variant. The bombs are there too, the GBUs, and also the rockets. So this would be a vehicle which basically could go Mach 1.2 with access to AMRAAMs and some pretty fun sidewinders. That is the high tiers of the Indonesian aviation subtree. Let me know your thoughts as always. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shia, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.